Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maximo and I'm here checking out Jet Lancer. Not the game I was planning on covering, mainly because it just seems like that everything I wanted to do a video on fell through in the past couple of days, and also in the past couple of days I've been working on another project which hopefully might help me out in the future, but well, I won't know that for sure until we get to this time next week, judging by when this video is supposed to go up. But anyway, we're doing this old school, no post-commentary, because I just don't have the bloody time. Here are the game settings. Some pretty basic stuff going on. Rank displays for, how you're doing in the level after you've already beaten it the first time. You've got rebindable controls for everything on keyboard and controller, which is nice. The bank type is kind of weird. It doesn't specify what's what. Arcade type is basically your turn left and right. Shooter type is your point in the direction. It's a bit odd. I don't know why they named it like those. They could have just said anything else, really, but oh well. I've also rebound some of the controls here, so some of these aren't going to be the same as when you pick up the game the first time, just FYI. Video settings aren't much, mainly because this is basically a 2D game with some 3D elements to it, so there's not really much here that needs to be affected. Runs pretty well in this machine as far as I can tell. Sound sliders and some accessibility stuff, which is kind of neat. You've got a fair few options going on here, but the weirdest one is just outright invincibility. I have no idea why you would put that in there, but it's there. The rest are just pretty simple stuff. You can kind of understand why they're in there for accessibility options, but invincibility? Why? I don't know. Anyway, I've been playing this for something like 90 minutes, going on to 2 hours at this point. Pretty simple game, not that much in the way of what the hell? I didn't do that. For some reason the game just decided to go back to the desktop by itself. That was a bit weird. Anyway, as I was saying, it's a pretty simple concept. You are a pilot who's been disgraced, going around helping out with sky pirates, and you are also basically the Antichrist, mainly because everything you do somehow comes out right, despite the fact that you're made out to be an absolute fuck-up. It's a bit weird. I don't know what the deal is with the story on this one, but I'm not going to say any more than that because it might count as spoilers, so let's go and have a look at our loadout. As I said, I've been playing this for about an hour and a half to 2 hours at this point, and I haven't gone everything yet, but the thing is, I haven't really gone anything that's particularly useful. You've got 3 weapons on your plane. You've got your regular minigun, you've got your missile-like weapons, and then you've got your charge weapon. So your missiles are basically just guided and unguided missiles at this point. You haven't unlocked the other ones yet, and guided missiles are just so much more useful than unguided missiles. I don't really see the point. You've also got a charge weapon, rocket swarm, ultra beam, a dumb bomb, and a set of automated drones. The automated drones might be useful sometimes, but everything else just kind of falls flat to the rocket swarm, because the rocket swarm just swarms everything. It's great for taking out huge crowds, it's great for dealing a lot of damage to a big boss. I don't know why you would bother to use any of the other weapons, they just don't seem to do anywhere near as much damage. You've also got modules, and these modules will change certain parts of the plane. So the 3 they give you by default are probably 3 of the most useful ones, because emergency stall, so that you don't get too close to the ground. Evade mod, so that it lets you know when you're about to get hit by a missile, which is very useful, by the way, because a lot of these planes are so quick off screen that they can just hit you with a missile before you can even conceptualize its existence, which is really frustrating. And your shield mod, which means you won't take 3 direct hits and then immediately die. It just gives you a little bit of breathing room between. The rest of the modules that you unlock aren't particularly useful. You get 4 slots, and the only one that's even remotely useful is the one that lets you use charged weapons more. So you got your afterburner mod, but you don't use your afterburners enough to really justify that unless you're going for really fast times. Auto roll. When you activate the jets, get ready to roll. I don't really see the point. Precise shooting module. Amps up the radius of your unguided weapons, but again, unguided weapons just aren't very useful in this game. And the dash module. Replace your roll with a forward dash, because why roll around in danger when you can accelerate straight towards it? I tried this, I have no idea what it means. It's weird. But anyway, if we press the X button here, we can see all of the levels that we have completed, and for some reason, this is the only one here that's ever actually shown up on this despite not being done. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is with that, but you can see that my completion up in the top left there is 46%, so there's clearly not that many missions, although there is a new Game Plus mode, which I assume just changes everything up as well. We're going to go play a relatively old mission, just because the ones I'm currently stuck on are kind of bullshit, so we're just going to go play an old mission to try and explain the try and explain the mechanics. So, you thrust forward, and you can use that. You can also just like turn your ship, do loop-de-loops, stall in the air, come back around. All of that useful stuff that a plane can do. And it handles pretty well. There's nothing particularly wrong with the way There's nothing particularly wrong with the way the plane handles in this game, but it is basically just trying to clone Luftrausers. It's really obvious that it's doing that. Come on, just die. Thank you. Your A button is your minigun. You fire your minigun, it kills things. Easy enough to understand. The main way that you avoid projectiles in this game is via the dodge button though, which does a dodge roll in the air. It also comes with a secondary effect though. If you do successfully manage to dodge anything, whether it be like an enemy plane body or a projectile or just like anything whatsoever, it amps your minigun. Gives it a bit more kick, makes it fire a bit faster. And it also gives bonus points. So you want to amp your minigun as much as possible in order to get all those little extra shots in for the extra points. Interesting concept, but honestly the minigun is a bit whiffy. Like seriously, these targets are so small, the aiming like sensitivity, it's not too high, but the planes are so small and your bullets aren't particularly great on the size either, that it doesn't particularly help when you're trying to like actually get shit done. Thankfully, the dodge roll is actually pretty generous. You get plenty of like room to actually do the dodge rolls, and you can even do it like right at the last second, like right as you're getting hit, and it'll count as a dodge. So it's actually pretty useful in that sense. You can literally dodge through anything. You can dodge through big planes. When you come up against a big-ass boss, you can dodge through the boss. But of course, if you're still inside it when the iframes are gone, say goodbye to your health. You know, all of that good jump. And then you've got on LB your special weapons and your missiles and your charge weapons. Pretty simple. You get 4 of the... Ow. You get 4 of your missile weapons. Easy enough to understand. And you get 4... Well, you don't get 4 of your charge weapon, but you can just let it go, more or less. You know, you just hold it and you fire away when you're ready. And the longer that you manage to charge it for, the longer that you manage to charge it for, the more goes out. Pretty simple stuff at the end of the day. At the end, you get a score, depending on a bunch of different things. The main ones you really want to worry about are your counter, which is what you get for dodging and then using your minigun, and your weapon, which is basically just you using different weaponry. I assume if you use less effective weaponry, you get more score, which lets you move up in the rankings. You need to get all S ranks, plus you need to not take a hit in order to get an ace, I believe. I haven't actually got an ace myself, but that's just kind of how it turned out. There is a story, but I can't remember if I said it in this recording or like the other 2 recordings I had before this one, where it's basically just, you're meant to be a down-and-out fighter pilot, but for whatever reason, you just seemed like not only incredibly smart, but you seem to know exactly when everything's going to be a bad thing, so you just seem like someone who's being held down by the system, which is not particularly great, despite the fact that they did have a pretty reasonable reason to fire you. You did something like $350 million worth of damage to an aircraft carrier. I think that was the reason, so yeah, I'm not going to claim to know entirely why they felt the need to make you like always right about everything. It'd be nice if you were wrong about something for at least once. There are also some more comedic dialogues, people throwing insults back and forth at each other, a talking cat who's your engineer, but that's basically the joke. Oh, also he leaves hairballs inside of people's cockpits that you don't like. I mean, that's also kind of nice and all, but yeah. It feels cocky and slightly underwritten. It's also, like, notable that the person who did the writing and the people who developed the actual game are completely different teams. The game was developed by 2 Russians, and the game was written by an English dude, so... yeah. I don't know if the Russians would have picked something a little bit different for the game's writing. But it's not the best, if I'm being perfectly honest. The action is pretty satisfying, don't get me wrong. There's nothing particularly wrong with the flying or the combat on the base level. It just doesn't seem to want to push it too far. Which is a bit of a shame, because it just seems like you can do so much more with the concept. Like, let's go back to the navigation and I'll show you all the missions that I've done so far. But here's the thing, outside the... There's a couple of missions where you have to just hover over a point and wait for the time to tick down. There's a couple of bosses that you have to fight off. I might show off one of those, actually. And then there's a couple of ones which are basically just the regular set of, like, enemies that you need to fight, but they give you, like, a special condition. Like, you're not allowed to fire too much, otherwise an instant-kill laser beam will track onto you, but you can still dodge it. Or there'll be something along the lines of, you have to protect a little kid who's in another plane, or just other things like that, which aren't particularly interesting. And it just makes the game... It just makes the game less enjoyable, because it just doesn't have that much idea of what to do with itself. Like, the boss fights are definitely the best parts of it, like, no questions asked. Just because they're big, they're cool, they require you to change up your tactics at least a little bit in some circumstances. I just gotta say that I'm just not particularly impressed with the absolute rest of it. As you can see, I've beaten this thing before, so... It's kind of let down by the fact that the weapons and modules you get are just not interesting. So I've been playing with the same plane for half the game, and I've just found myself not being particularly interested in what the game's unlocking for me, has to offer for me. Would it be better off giving me, like, straight stat boosts? Would it be better off giving me more interesting weapon sets? At least with a game like Nova Drift, you had room to experiment, but with this, I've seen no reason to swap off the Rocket Swarm because it's just too useful in too many circumstances. So, I don't know. I don't know exactly, like, what they were thinking, but I'm just starting to get bored. That's the real big issue with it, and I'm already past the refund time, which is not great. So if I actually wanted to get a refund from this off Steam, I don't think it's going to happen now. So we just get to hunt down the mission and go for it. But yeah, this one is a little bit of a douche canoe, because you've got this big ass enemy ship in the background just threatening you constantly if you do so much as sneeze, for example. And you just gotta kill as many of these bosses as you can within the time limit. Or, well, get to a certain score. It's basically the same thing, you know. Dodge for more points and what have you, but you get the general concept. It just doesn't seem to want to do much with the Luftrausers concept. Like, I really liked Rogue Aces for how it handled the whole, like, you know, improving on a formula by making it like one persistent world that you constantly had to like travel back and forth across, and it included a bunch of like extra little modes just for the fun of it. Little touches like that, or like really big touches more than anything else, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, but It's things like that which I appreciate more. This just seems to be an out-and-out attempt to clone the Luftrausers formula. And it's not a bad game, but it just doesn't have that much going for it. At least it looks nice. I've got no problem with the way it looks. That whole, like, 3D, like, mode... It reminds me most of Mode 7. It's not Mode 7, but it definitely reminds me of it more than it does anything else. God, these planes are just not coming at me fast enough. Like, I do have an afterburner, but the game really, like... Usually it sends these planes at you like there's no bloody tomorrow for them, and generally if they run into you, they do, but... Yeah, whatever, we finished it. It's also not helped out by the fact that there's a bunch of things that these enemy planes do which is really annoying. They can come at you really fast from off-screen to the point where... They come at you really fast from off-screen to the point where it feels like they come in so quickly you can't perceive them by the time they're already so close that you can't avoid them. There's a couple of things like that that happen, and they're just kind of annoying more than anything else. Oh yeah, also your plane's got AI in it, but the only time it ever bothers to come up is when... Well, is when you get too close to a boss. Okay, this guy takes a lot of damage. This is going to be fun. Bloody hell, what did I hit there? Admittedly, this guy's actually going to be a bit harder because of that module that makes you automatically avoid the ground. Because you're going to want to be as close as you can possibly get to actually deal with this guy, so... This is going to be fun. Let's try another loadout. We'll take care of the... We'll take that off. Fine, we'll try the unguided weapons. That might actually be relatively useful in this situation. Yeah, I know. Oh, hold Y to skip. Okay. Bit of a long skip time, but whatever. Okay. Okay. That really did hurt him. What the hell was hitting me there? I didn't even see it. Oh, we got missiles incoming. That's going to be fun to deal with. Well, do we? Where'd they go? No big-ass, like, laser beam cannon this time, Mr. Stern Rabook? AKA nothing to make you even... Oh, there it is. Really? Literally, like, one bloody shot away. Honestly, that just wasn't very funny. How'd I do? It was a B. I'll take it, I guess. It wasn't very quick. New module? Cool. What have they got for us this time? An explosive payload with infrared... Oh, it's a bloody land... Well, not so much landmine, but I don't really care if I'm being perfectly honest. Let's go back to the no stall thing. And yeah, of course, I just have to wander over there and hope I find them eventually. 51% completion, okay. At least there's 3 missions to do. We can pick one that's the most interesting. So we've got destroy three gun platforms, clear the area, and stop enemy bombers. I think we're going to go with the 3 gun platforms, if I'm being honest with you. It's in the air, isn't it? It sure is. But I can't see it. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's what they call a gun platform? I was expecting something a lot bigger. Wait, what? Oh, it's a new type of plane that's actively designed to just not let me use my homing weapons. Honestly, that's just like... I feel like that's just intentionally like crippling me on purpose, and it doesn't feel fair. Like, I get the idea, don't like rely so heavily on homing weapons, but at the same time, if you didn't want your homing weapons to be used so much, make weapons that aren't shit. And maybe I'd consider actually using them every once in a while. So there's a third one going to come in from the left as well. Nope, it's going to come in from the right. I really should have expected that. Let's just afterburn over there, huh? There it is. Charge up my many missiles. Many missiles are missiling. And we're done. I think we'll go fight what I think was the most like interesting boss in the game so far, and then we'll just call it. Because I don't really think there's anything else to see, but let's see what this new loadout module is. Alright, you have my attention. Let's take off that storm mod and try this minigun mod out. Alright, I believe it was twin jets. So yeah, just like 2 jets fighting you at once. That kind of looks like they killed you, but that's not what they do at all. It's weird. Same rules still apply when you're taking on these kinds of jets, just... Yeah. I kind of like this fight. It's not just like a gigantic robot that seems immensely overpowered for no good reason. It's just two dudes flying around in jets. Kind of like Ace Combat, isn't it? Don't get me wrong, you have fun taking down the gigantic like robots and the weapons platforms and what have you, but the most satisfying thing about them is when you've got two people, well, one or two people, who are on your level trying to take you out, and you're just dodging, weaving, making your best attempt to actually avoid them. Genuinely more fun. And I just shat out 50 missiles directly into his face. He wasn't avoiding that no matter how hard he tried. Yeah, boss ranks are basically just time. You just gotta beat them as quick as humanly possible. So that was a look at Jet Lancer. There is a New Game Plus mode, which I assume changes up the layouts of all the stages so that they're more difficult and all that, but it just doesn't really do enough with the formula. It just feels like a less intense version of Luftrausers turned into a thing, an extra game with not particularly great writing. Decent presentation, but other than the outright core combat feeling okay, it just doesn't really do anything for me past that. So, yeah, don't really like it that much. Not something I'd recommend, not at full price anyway. Maybe when it hits $5. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.